Hello and welcome to Leveraging AI, the podcast that shares practical, ethical ways on how to improve efficiency, grow your business, and advance your career with AI. We have a special live episode again today. We are going to be doing these lives more or less every week now, unless I'm speaking at a conference. So it's going to happen pretty frequently, probably 3 out of every 4 weeks or so. And our guest today is going to talk with us on a very critical topic for businesses today. So if you think about B2B sales, doing B2B sales correct is a good balance of art and science. But the reality is that if you know the science, especially combined with AI capabilities that exist today, you need very little art to get results that are very good. But what do I mean by use AI for sales? So it's anything from identifying your perfect ICP, your target, your ideal client persona, to identifying the specific pain points that they're probably going through so you can address those, to personalize the outreach messages, to helping you write proposals, to close the deal. Every single step of that process can be assisted by AI, driving higher efficiencies and higher conversion. So you gain on basically doing less work to get better results. You win on both ends of that equation. And our guest today, Bjion Henry, is the CEO of Navreo, which is a company that does exactly that. They provide these kind of services to multiple companies, helping them implement AI in their sales process, which is a critical aspect of any business now, and definitely any business moving into the next few years when AI is going to take more and more aspects. So if you learn to do this today, you're going to be ahead of the competition, sell more while doing less, which is probably what everybody wants. So I'm really excited to welcome Bjion to the show. Bjion, welcome to Leveraging AI.
Hey, thank you for allowing me to come on to this to share some of the knowledge that I have.
Awesome. I'm really excited about this. You and I got to chat several times, and you bring very important information to companies because I think many people today, and I teach AI courses and I speak on stages, I get to engage with a lot of CEOs of companies. Most people don't really know, like they're excited. There's a serious FOMO. Everybody's doing it and I'm not yet. And the reality is most people are not doing it yet. But you really have it down to a very clear process on how to use it for sales. So let's really get started. Like, what are the different steps that AI can help you with? And then we'll go one by one and dive into how to actually do it.
Yeah, so with us, we help companies literally from the content, which is the thing which brings people into the funnel, all the way through to actually, okay, now we've actually got a deal. Where did that come from? And how can we learn from that data to then take it to the next level? And I think the way that we've learned is doing it for ourselves first, and then we just share it with our clients. And through that process is a case where we can weed out all the little weeds and everything and then present them with a process. And then with your permission, what I'll start doing is I'll share my screen and start walking you guys through that process.
Okay.
Is that okay, Isa?
Yeah.
Just so I got this correctly and all the tech is working, you can see a diagram on my screen, right? With a
Yes,
rainbow.
I can see the diagram on your screen.
Wonderful, wonderful. So all of this, the whole process for all B2B starts with content. And I know a lot of people shun away from or shy away from content because they believe it's just not measurable. But through this whole demo, I'm going to show you exactly how you can connect a booked call definitively to activity on social media. So the way that we do it is it starts top of the funnel. This is the most top of the funnel you can really get. It's personal stories. So what it is, it's stuff like 5 things I know at 29, which I wish I knew at 20. Now, the whole purpose of these stories is to build a connection with whoever's watching. Now, the amount of times that I've been on calls and someone's come on and said, oh, I saw that you I used to work at Google, or I saw you do this, or I think I put up a post a couple of months ago about an accident I had, and they were saying that someone came onto the call and we were talking about that. It builds a rapport. It changes you from just a faceless company entity to someone who's actually real and personable and they can actually relate to. And from my content, this may actually perform the least. However, it's what anecdotally we within Navrio would say is one of the biggest tipping scales to actually bring people over the line and bring them onto a call. So we next move down down the funnel. This is free resources. So what you'll see here is I've put the caption is AI is awful at driving leads. That's if you haven't used these. And basically it's a free resource. It's just a cheat sheet. So there's 5 AI tools that I recommend, 5 prompts, 3 AI assistants, and you'll see you got 200 likes, 20,000 impressions. That, when I took this screenshot, was in a space of a day. And you'll see that when you guys start doing it, is that these can really start to drive reach for you. And it's also a case where they start to position you as the industry leaders.
So I want to touch on the first 2 things that you mentioned. The first one, the purpose of the first one is to make it personal, right? Is to, oh, you're not dealing with a company, you're dealing with an actual person. Here's who I am, here's my fears, my processes, my achievements, my personal life. Make people know you, because then they're more likely to connect with you and then want to do business with you. The second does 2 things, right? So this free content that's actual beneficial to people, and it could be in multiple ways, right? But at the end of the day, it's giving people access to your knowledge. Does 2 things. A, it gets a lot of likes and shares because it's practical content that people want, so you get the exposure. And B, it establishes you as somebody who knows what they're doing because you're continuously sharing knowledge that other people don't have. So by combining these 2 things, and I'm actually curious to know at what ratio do you combine them in your content. By combining these 2 things, you get the exposure, you get the people understand that you are an expert on the topic, and you get the personal connection. So what's the ratio you do these things, and how frequently do you do them?
Yeah. So I post 7 times a week, and I do personal stories twice a week. I do this twice a week, and I do this third one 3 times a week. And going back to what you were saying, you're exactly right. This personal story part, it's as in, I think most sales reps and sales leaders will probably not want to do it so much, but I can't, like, everyone knows that sales is just all about relationships. The amount of relationships and candid conversations I sparked with these is just countless. So it really helps to get your foot through the door and then start building towards a sale. Cool.
So what's the third one?
Oh, yeah. So this is the third one. So what this is, service specific demos. So what it's basically doing is it's you demoing what you do or what you're selling, but in a way where you're not giving away everything that you do. It's almost like a teaser. And this is the one where like you're giving just enough information to show people, and then you have a strong CTA. So the CTA that we always use on LinkedIn is, right, now I have 2 options. You could be doing what you're doing or carry on doing what you're doing for the next couple of months, try to work it out for yourself, but you'll just waste a lot of time. Or you can come work with us and we can build this whole process for you. Now, as I say,
and I want to generalize that for a second for companies who are more established, bigger companies. These could be demos of what your product does, right?
Exactly.
Or what your service provides to your clients. Or it could be an interview with an existing client that has achieved whatever results, like something that actually shows what is the outcome of working with your company is going to deliver to somebody who is considering working with your company or that has a similar problem. So if you can do that, and as you said, that's most of your content, that's half your content basically, is these kind of things, that again, not just establish you as an expert on the topic, it's actually showing the results that it can get, which I assume also helps you overcome objections by addressing different aspects of what you do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it too. And just to put this into numbers, so you can see I've got 17,000 followers. In the last 30 days, I've had 400,000 followers. I think that's actually a little bit out of date. But in Q4, in 2003, when I started my content creation journey, in the whole year, I amassed 1.2 million views. sorry, 1.7 million views. However, when I started to crack the code, which is this 3 trifecta, if you want to call it that, in the last 90 days of Q4, I did 1.2 million of that 1.7 million views in 2023 came in those last 90 days. And in Q4, we booked around 181 calls. And this month so far, we've done 59 new discovery calls for a business. So it really does work.
Amazing.
Cool. So now what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to show you how to actually, the secret behind it, the mechanism behind all of this, because yeah, those numbers are amazing. The bigger magic behind all of this is that most of that was actually generated using AI. And I'm going to show you exactly how we do it. So basically we use a bunch of prompts.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you exactly.
So to those of you who are not seeing the screen, Bjion is just going to his Google Docs and picking up a specific prompt that he has prepared in advance that he's using regularly. That's what's called, and you heard me talk about this on the podcast multiple times, it's called having a prompt library. Once you figure out the prompt that works well and generates results, there's no need to reinvent it or retype it every single time. Save it into whatever repository you want, and then you can reuse it again and again. So let's read at least some of that prompt so people that are listening to the podcast can see what it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the way that we break down the prompt is we say we're actually using Claude. And if, for the people in the audience who don't know what Claude is a ChatGPT competitor backed by Amazon and a number of very big companies.
Yep.
The reason why we use Claude and not ChatGPT is because for what we're about to do, we basically create a mini database of unique personal stories. Now, those unique personal stories is just, and this is what we ask all our clients to do, is just answer 10 questions about themselves, but in full. And there's stuff like, what was your first job? Tell me a time that you struggled in your life. And what that does is it gives the AI a lot of ammunition to then mix with your content pillars. And what I mean by that, let's say, for example, you want to do posts around finding leads. If you were to ask ChatGPT or Claude to do that or to create content around that, you're going to sound like every other person on the internet or on any social media platform. It also goes back to what I was saying around you have to be personable on LinkedIn. And so what this AI does is it takes your personal stories, mixes it in with these leads, and creates something beautiful. So let's break down this prompt. So it says, develop 3 LinkedIn posts. The target audience is senior roles, so CMO, chief revenue officers, directors. Then what I tell it is themes that I want to orientate the content around, such as like using AI to create accurate leads lists. I then tell the AI what things I want it to avoid talking about, such as like email marketing. And then finally, I give it a breakdown as to how I want it to present the ideas. First of all, I want it to give me the title. Then what I want to do is I want it to tell me how I should personalize this specific content idea it's about to present to me. And then the final part is how it should be structured. So it's telling me, okay, do this or create a video saying that and create a video doing this. And what you can see is one of the ideas is how to use AI to find your ideal customers, how I use AI to uncover my best fit clients. When I was struggling to grow my design agency, I wish I had an easy way to identify ideal clients. And this is referring back in COVID, when I was running a design agency. It was very hard back then because back then you didn't have all these LinkedIn automation tools and whatever. And it was super, super difficult. However, if I had those tools today, it would have been a lot easier. And that's how I bridge into the recommendation of a tool. And that's a content idea in itself. Just for everyone who can't see this on the podcast, the 2 other ideas is how to automate personalized outreach with AI. And the final one is crafting my personal brand story with AI. Now, this gives me at least an idea to run with. And the beautiful thing about this is all I actually have to do to give me three. All I have to do to get to give me more ideas is just ask. Type in, give me three more ideas, and it will consistently keep on giving me ideas. So having writer's block or any creativity block is no longer an issue.
I just want to pause you for 1 second, going back to what I said in the very beginning. Learning which content to promote in order to attract your ideal clients is an art and science. But the AI can help you with the art, like figuring out, okay, you said you post these kinds of posts 3 times a week. I'm like, how do I come up with 3 topics a week to write about? You don't. This helps you come up with the topics. And then I assume the next step, it actually helps you write the topics. This is just more in the brainstorming phase. And I want to say one more thing. The very first thing people jump into with AI is writing content or creating content. And actually, this biggest strength of AI is ideation, is this thing that you're doing right now, is not drafting the actual content, but it is coming up with the right ideas that what you know about your client, what AI knows about the industry, and the combination of that can come up. It's basically a brainstorming partner to come up with new ideas that then, together with the AI, you can probably create the content, which I assume is the next step.
It is indeed. Yeah. And the reason why we do it in these 2 steps is if you ask AI to come up with the ideas and then ask it to come up with the caption as well, it will just not do it. It will hallucinate like crazy and you'll just never get good results. And that's why for the 90% of people who have tried creating content using AI have all failed, because they try to do it all at the same time instead of piecing it up like we're doing here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually move on to the next part, which is a tool that we created for ourselves. And I say tool, all it basically is, and what I'm looking at right now, is a Google Sheets with ChatGPT put inside of it. And you can do that using a simple Chrome extension. And then we've created our own little caption maker. So what I have to do is, from Claude, is the idea that I liked, I just copy and paste it into this section where we've put paste your caption below. And then what will happen when we go on to the next tab is that we have a list of about 48 different LinkedIn templates. And what the AI will then do is take that idea that we just did and just start to pump it straight into these templates. So what you can now see is some of these examples of like how, for example, the first one is did X today. So did some digging today. When I was struggling to grow my design agency, I wish I had a way to easily identify ideal customers after my agency folded due to COVID. I realized I needed to get laser focused on how I could best serve. Here are 5 things that I learned in my search for uncovering my best fit clients. Bam. Okay. And then,
so I want to pause you just for 1 second to share what's on the screen so people understand how brilliant this is. And I want to break this down to the people who are listening and not watching the screen. By the way, if you want, this is going to be on YouTube as well. So if you want to see the screen, you can do that after you're finishing listening to the podcast. I don't suggest you watch the YouTube while you're driving the car or doing the dishes or walking your dog, but you can later on go back and watch this on YouTube. But the first tab had what we literally copied and pasted, the idea from Claude. The second tab has an automation that has 3 columns. Column 1 is a structure of a prompt. Column 2 is an example, and those AI engines are very good when they see examples. So I'm sure it gets fed both the prompt, general prompt, and then the example. And then what it does is it picks the content we just took from Claude, which is the idea, the new idea, drops it into here, and in the third column generates a brand new post, but it's not doing one of them because there's, like you said, there's 40 templates. So it takes 40 templates with 40 examples that now generates 40 posts based on the new idea that we got just from Claude. And this is, I've seen a lot of people do a lot of really cool stuff with AI content. This is very high on the list. This is incredible. So to tell people from how you can crack this yourself, you have to figure out, or look at other people, copy others people's structure of successful posts. Okay, what are they doing? They're sharing what they did today. They're sharing successes. They're sharing a process. They're sharing a tool. They're sharing, like, What are they sharing? The top 5, whatever. Break down the structure of the actual post that you like, create it as a template, copy and paste the example, and it could be the third-party example. It could be Bjion's example, and then connect it in the back end. And I assume you're using a tool, something like GPT for Sheets and Docs on one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. This is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Now you can continue, but I just wanted to share with people who can see what we're actually seeing.
Yeah, exactly. And so what you're able to do is look at all of these different ideas, and you don't have to just copy and paste it and post. You can dive into it and make your own slight little tweaks, because the AI is just meant to reduce the work for you. It's not meant to do everything for you. And once you get into the habit of just putting it in here and then being able to tweak it slightly, you'll be off to the races, because it removes the biggest issue with content creation, which is that it just takes way too long. But this crushes that whole process. So what I wanted to finish this with is just going back to numbers. And I'm going to go through my own profile and just literally read off the last impressions for the last couple of posts, just to give you a bit of an idea of where you could be at some stage. So the post I did today already got 5,000 views. The one I did yesterday, 5,000. The one the day before that, 25,000. The day before that, 13,000. The day before that, 3,000, 21,000, 5,000, 6,000, and it keeps on going on and going on. 9,000. Another one just got 100,000. Two of the ones that I've done this month have gotten over 100,000 impressions, views. Now, when you consider what you just saw in terms of a process, if you were even watching the clock, how long did that take me to actually create that piece of content? It was literally an idea in Claude, copy that idea into the spreadsheet, copy that spreadsheet, sorry, the idea that came out of it, and put it into LinkedIn, and that's the process. Don't get me wrong, there is as Isa has said, there is an art to it. So the next part of that is spotting and learning through your own content of putting out so much stuff, what actually works and what doesn't work. And then from that, you're able to start to really put a solid content creation strategy together.
2 questions before we continue that comes from the audience. One, the first one was why Claude and not ChatGPT? So I'll let you answer that and then ask you the second question.
Yeah, so the reason why I do use ChatGPT, but the reason why you would use Claude in this instance is because Claude handles big data a lot better than ChatGPT. And what I mean by handle is that it hallucinates a lot less. And when you have a lot of personal stories, which you need in order to give the AI a breadth of different bits of material to create content, when you need a lot of information, like I've experimented with it so much, and ChatGPT just consistently hallucinates. And also one final point is, and I've heard this from a lot of people, is that Claude sounds more like a human than ChatGPT. Like ChatGPT sometimes sounds a bit robotic. Like, for example, you'll see some funny blunders. Like in normal English or human talk, we would say you would get on the bus. But if ChatGPT was to create a variation of that, it would say, oh, he mounted the bus. Because objectively, and by the definition, it's more or less the same to get on and to mount. But you wouldn't say that in normal speech.
Yeah, it has some phrases that nobody will ever say that it uses frequently as well. And by the way, I wanted you to answer that by, I totally second that. Like when we create content for social, most of it comes from Claude for the same exact reasons. Like when I take the podcast and I want to create a snippet out of it, Claude does a better job than ChatGPT because it's 45 minutes of recorded content that I'm throwing in there. For you, I assume it's just a Word document that has your stories that you wanted to use as reference. But so this is one aspect. I also use ChatGPT for other things. So I use both. I'll give people a little hint or a little tool that I absolutely love and I use it regularly. It's called Chat Hub and it's a Chrome extension. It's not an actual thing you install. So there's a Chat Hub tool that does chat management, but it's not that. It's a Chrome extension called Chat Hub, and it allows you to open 2 if you're on the paid version, or as many as you want large language models on the paid version side by side, and give them the same prompt and load the same material and see what happens. So instead of copying and pasting it 3 times, if you want to run ChatGPT and Claude and Bing and what's the one from Google, Gemini,
Bard.
and see how they're doing, Bard, yeah. So Bard operated by Gemini behind the scenes. If you want to see how they handle specific tasks side by side, exactly the same process, you can run them one next to the other. And it's a great tool to do exactly these kind of things and see. And it's not bad what ChatGPT is doing, but I agree with Bjion completely that as far as creating prompt that sounds like me, Claude is doing a better job right now. This can change next week. So that's why I keep on experimenting.
Yeah. And so what we've now done is we've gone back to the customer journey diagram. So just to recap, at the top, we have personal stories. Then we have the free learning resources. Then we have the service specific demos, which is showing what your business does. And then the next part of this, and this is what I was alluding to earlier in this webinar, is so how do you actually identify who's your customer and then are able to actually track how content is actually driving sales or whatever. So what we do is we use a platform called Clay. And what Clay allows you is what Clay looks like, or is more or less that is, it's like the Google Sheets, but with loads of data providers embedded into it. So say, for example, if you were to put in a LinkedIn URL, you would be able to enrich that URL and find out where the name behind that URL, where that person works, the description of the company that they work at, the company size, and so on. And that's what I'm about to show you right now.
So again, for those of you listening, we're just logging into the Clay tool. And once we are, then we can share exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. So what you can now see is a bunch of leads, and all of these leads have come from my own profile, in terms of these are people who engaged on my comments, or they've liked my content, or they've connected with me over LinkedIn. And the way that you would to export these things, to export them, is literally, there's so many automation providers out there, but we use Phantom Buster. So you're just able to post in your link and then get a massive list of all the people who commented on that link. Now, prior to automation, prior to AI, what you would have to do is go through every single comment and then find to see, okay, is that person actually the ideal customer or not? And that could take ages, because if you think, you've got to go onto their profile, then you've got to look at where they work at. Then you've got to click onto that company. Then you've got to go and research the company. But we found a process which does this in a matter of seconds. So what you're
just
now...
before you do that, just to explain to people what Phantom Buster is an automation tool built for LinkedIn, where you can build different processes like scouting people who connected with me, who looked at my profile. You can build these automations and then decide what to do in different scenarios. And in this case, I assume the scenario is if 1, 2, 3 happens, then just send it to Clay, or to exactly. A CSV, and then you import it here. I don't know how automated this is, but
yeah, no, you got it completely correctly. So this is an automation which can just be pushed straight into it. Now,
okay.
in the window that we have at the moment, there's a column which is name, another column which is LinkedIn URL. And that's all the information we need to get started. We don't actually even need the name column. I'm now going to click run. And what it's going to now do is to start to go through every single one of the list that I have. Now, I've only done 15 in the interest of time, but I've done tens of thousands. If you consider I've got 17,000 followers on LinkedIn, and on average, my posts receive around 100 likes, some up to 2,000 comments. I do this all the time. So what you're able to do, or we needed an automated process to just go through every single one. And this is what we do. And we just import it in. The max it's ever taken me to do is literally half an hour. And I don't know. And what you can, so I'll walk you through the process of way the AI comes to the decision whether they are ICP or not. And it's just done 15 records and it's already done. So it basically looks what country that they're from. We only work in Europe, so we would exclude anything from Asia, Africa, or like America. And so what it does is it first checks that country. If it's within that jurisdiction, it then moves on to look at whether they are the correct role or not. Now we can define that. So I'm just about to open up the engine or the brain and to read you the prompt, because that's how it works from, to show you the things that we're looking for. So the following roles: head of sales, CEO, head of innovation, chief operating officer, a CMO, or someone that has a go-to-market strategy. If it has any of those, it will continue to the next stage. If it doesn't, it will just stop there and save the AI credit and keep costs down. The next part of that process is to then enrich the company. So what it then finds, it goes on to the company profile and says, okay, how big is this company? What is their name? What is the description? Where are they based? And from that, what we're then able to do is get all of that information and then finally give AI the criteria in which we want to define this by. So this is stuff which is not so easily, it's not objective. You can't put this into Sales Navigator or Apollo or any of those things. A robot wouldn't, I guess a robot could do it now, but before, what I would say 2 years ago, this would have been possible. So what we've asked the AI, is this a B2B company? But you could have asked it, what is the price? Are they priced at, or do they show pricing on their website? Or what type of health company are they? And it can make those decisions instantly. We've told it, if it is a B2B company, then go ahead and say yes. And then what it doesn't stop there. It actually says and makes the decision and then tells us why it made that decision. So the company described seems to be a fit for B2B criteria. They offer a multi-channel feedback solution that enables businesses to track customer satisfaction. So yes, obviously that's a B2B company. So let's move on to another one.
I want to pause you just for 1 second to explain how brilliant this process is. So again, historically, the way this would have been done, and it would have been done only by larger companies because otherwise you just don't have the scale to do this, is you hire a bunch of interns or a team in India or somewhere that is cheaper than the US or the UK in your case, to actually go and research every one of those leads and fill up this table. And here you can do as many as you want and get all the information. But in addition to getting the information, it's actually making the decisions step by step. And the reason it's doing it in steps, because every one of those calls is actually costing you money through the ChatGPT API. And if you can minimize the calls because, oh, you didn't pass through the first gate, there's no reason in getting all the other information, saves you a hell of a lot of money, especially when you're talking about multiples of hundreds every single day.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Like absolutely brilliant.
And what if I told you that this is averaging around 1 cent per lead?
Yeah.
So and as you said, before you would have had to hire a team. This does not get tired and it does not miss, because what you can do and the way that you reduce the amount it can hallucinate or make bad decisions is you just focus it even more. So notice how I split it up into very specific sections. I asked one question at a time. I didn't say to it, find me, is this company a B2B business with over 11 employees that's in these regions, and is the person, the contact, this particular job role? Because again, it would just hallucinate. But going through this process, it gets it super accurate. And just to show you a no answer, so there's another one in this list, and it says, no, the company described 360 stories appears to be primarily targeting end consumers, travelers with their immersive tech for booking tours and activities. They are focused on B2C by offering an app. So this just shows you the yes and the no. Now, taking this back a step, Now, this is a process. I know what I focus on grabbing these leads, or you finding these particular prospects from your LinkedIn and just from your own LinkedIn content. But the diagram that I'm now showing on the screen, is the most common sources that we can actually get these prospects. So on the left side, we have the warm leads from your LinkedIn. So it doesn't need to just be your content. It could be people who viewed your profile. It could be all of your followers. It could be people that follow your company. It can be members of a group. Let's say, for example, you're targeting D2C brands. You could find a D2C brand on LinkedIn, export all of their members, and then do this exact same process. You can also do it with event attendees. So say, for example, there's a business conference coming up with thousands of people clicked attending to the event. You could scrape the whole thing and find out definitively who is your ICP, ideal customer persona, and only target them. Equally, you can do this with website leads. You can export all of these leads from LinkedIn so they could be completely cold. You could use third-party leads like Apollo. You could even use your newsletter subscribers, because I know I use the LinkedIn URL, but you can also I can enrich and get all of this information just from your email alone. So the world's your oyster. And to bring it to a climax, once you actually have this list, you can then, and this is all the yeses, that is your hit list. You could put that into a LinkedIn outreach tool, or you could do it on an email outreach tool. And so the problem with before, and this is why people hate cold outreach, receiving it and sending it, is because it was always a spray and pray approach. You downloaded a list, you couldn't go through every single list, every single lead to work out whether they were or weren't your customer. And so what you had to do was just send it to whoever, and just hope something sticks. And the problem with that is, not the first thing is you get rubbish response rates, which could actually lead you to believe you have a rubbish offer when really you just have a rubbish mechanism to get to those people. But also it uses up your capacity for outreach. So for example, on LinkedIn, you can only send, I think it's 150 to 200 requests or message requests a week. Now, if half of those aren't even your customer, you're not going to get to where you need to get, i.e. sales, fast enough, because you're always going to have dead weight. But this process allows you to clean out the whole thing and get there a lot faster.
Amazing. Fantastic. Two questions from the audience from Zoom. One, is it possible to do this not just on LinkedIn, but on other social platforms? I assume the answer is yes. It's just a different scraper, right? So Phantom Buster was built for LinkedIn, but I assume there's similar scrapers for Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or stuff like that. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, so yeah, it is possible to do it. We used to do it for, or at least this is how, those tools where you're able to find influencers at scale, and you can identify, this is exactly how they're made.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one question. The other question is, if you would have used Apollo, how would you link Apollo to this process? And again, those of you who don't know Apollo, it's cold email outreach meets data, like some data on the companies from third-party tools. So if you had to combine this with Apollo, how would you combine this?
Yeah. So in the same way you can extract from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's the same process with Apollo. So you would download the Apollo leads list, put it into Clay, get Clay to clean it, and then send it to wherever you want it to go. And the great thing about Apollo is they have better data than LinkedIn. So they have a better email database, and they also scrape LinkedIn as well. So they can so if you have the email of someone, you would also get their LinkedIn as well. So if you wanted to, you could actually hit them on LinkedIn and hit them on email at the same time.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. And I think it's absolutely amazing. So what's the next step? So now you have a list of, by the way, one more thing that I'm just thinking as another small benefit is it allows you to have a lot less contacts on your CRM. And most CRMs you pay by the amount of contacts you keep. So you only get to keep the ones that are actually relevant instead of the tens of thousands that are not relevant. And hence, you're going to save money on that channel as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly it. And with this clay tool, the sky's the limit. You can do so many other enrichments. So say, for example, you do have your CRM and you wanted to know what is 3 use cases of a business's product. You can actually, and this is within clay, you would go into clay and you would add a column, you would add something called Claygent. And what this Claygent does, it's an AI robot that goes onto their website and completes a task for you. So you could ask it, right, fetch me their pricing, fetch me one of their case studies, fetch me a list of their clients, fetch me a use case for their business. And then you could create a very robust CRM system with just amazing data that you've entirely curated. And on a final point, what you're then able to do is once you have this hit list, now think of it like this, okay? If I've downloaded this from a list of all the comments on my latest post, I now have a measurable, justifiable case to say there's a connection between my content and us getting in touch with our customer or creating some sort of touch point. Because if they've commented on your post, let's say that they're responding to one of the free resources, which is what often happens with us, I can then go and outreach to them and say, hey, glad you enjoyed the resource. What do you do? What are you working on? And that actually brings me on to the final part of this webinar, which is the bottom of the funnel. What we do is something called sell by chat, and it's very simple. It literally is selling by chat. So once we have this hit list of all the people who've engaged with our content, let's say that they've asked us to send them a prompt pack that we've made for them, or send them a PDF or a report, we jump into their DMs and we send it to them. And it's as simple as this. All we ever ask is, what do you do? So we send it, we say, also, nice to meet you. What do you do? And what are you working on? You will never be able to, I can't put into words how many times people will then share exactly to a point what they're working on and what challenges they're currently facing. Now, us as a salesman will then think, okay, I now know your pain point. I now know what your challenge is. How can my product fix your challenge? And if it doesn't, it's just a kind of conversation that you can save for another time. But if it is something where you can help with, that's where you can jump in and say, okay, look, we do this. If ever you guys need a helping hand or want to jump on a call, feel free. So in this conversation, which I have on the screen, is someone asks me, what is your go-to? So we start off a kind of conversation and he says, what is your go-to-market strategy for drop shippers? They must be difficult to find. No, sorry, no, I said that. And then he said, what do you mean? I said, go-to-market strategy. How do you find customers at scale? And then he says, so we do ads, exhibitions, affiliations, word of mouth. And then he suggests maybe be useful to have a call to understand if we can cooperate together. And I say, I'd love to. And that's how the call is booked. I would say 50% of the time, they actually offer the call and the conversation before I even do it, which is just insane.
And I want to touch on this because what you're saying again is freaking amazing. But something that we do a lot as well is DMs. I don't think people use DMs enough. Like, it's a great way to connect with people outside of the eyes of everybody else, and you can have a candid conversation. And I probably have 20, 30 of those every single day. Some of it is quasi-automated, so it's actually me, but I have pre-canned answers and questions that I use regularly, and I actually just use them. I use a Chrome extension called Magical to do that, and that's how I can communicate a lot quicker with a lot more people with typing a lot less. But so questions or answers that I do regularly, I will have in those shortcuts, and then I can do it that way. But the other thing that I think is absolutely brilliant is because you have all their data in Clay, you can have Clay write the first message that is not going to be generic, what are you working on? But I see you working for this and that company. I see that your role is this and that. I will be really interested for somebody in your position in that company to learn what you do. And then it's the same thing, but it makes it a lot more personal, and it takes you not more time because an AI platform will create the first message for you that then you can send to them either through automation or just by copying and pasting.
Yeah, exactly. And this goes back to what I was saying about using Clay or Claygen. The AI robot can go onto their website, because you could actually ask the Claygen to go onto the website, find their latest blog, or find something which we can use to personalize the message. Cool. And so the final part of this is, okay, so let's say that we close this deal from this guy who needs some help. What we then need to go back and do is understand how we even got to that point where like we were even able to sell to him. So what was actually driving those meetings? And for that, we use Accio, which is my favorite tool at the moment. And what Accio is, it's like the ChatGPT data analyzer, but on absolute steroids, and it doesn't hallucinate half as much as it and can handle far more data. Now, I exported 24,000 messages from LinkedIn. And to do that is actually very easy. You just go onto LinkedIn, you go down to data and privacy, get a copy of your own data and select messages. But then once you have all this data, and this data for me dates back to 2017 when I first started using LinkedIn, it's a record of every single message that has ever gone through my account. Now, think about what I've just been saying. What we do is we do sell by chat. So we have a number of chats going out all the time. And there's no tool to track any of this, because it's just conversations. No one's worked out. So sell by chat is actually a very recent thing. So we have all of this data, and to make sense of it, what we use is Accio. So first of all, we actually import all the contacts from Clay, where we identified our ICP. So the way I got to that was I exported all my connections, ran them through Clay, so the 17,000, and I identified how many people that was actually my ideal customer persona. And then I cross-referenced that with all the messages in my inbox to find out how many conversations are we actually having with the people who actually matter. And I'm going to show you how it all works. So what we have is this particular chat
feature
here
of Accio. Yeah.
You can speak to your data. So for me, this data is a record of all of my previous conversations. And once you see the extent to which so what's this happened? I've just asked it, what was Bjion's first message to Ricky Solanke? Ricky Solanke was a client that we recently closed, and we started from this LinkedIn outreach approach. So I say to him, hey, Ricky, I'm a part of an AI agency made up of ex-Google team that uses AI to automate your sales task, lead capture, lead scoring, qualifying. This enables your team to focus on selling. Would you like to hear more? So I can go straight back to that and find that out instantly. I don't have to trawl through all the messages. But what I can also do is I can ask it quite difficult questions to get, because there's no tool to actually gather this data. So what I'm now asking it is, show me a line chart showing the amount of conversations with my ICP, how the amount of conversations with my ICP has changed since August 2023. Now, what you can see on this graph in front of me is in August, September, October, it's close to zero, because we didn't even know what sell by chat was. Then in November, it started to peak, because that's when we actually started doing it. It peaked very high in the week of November because we ran an event and we were inviting everyone from our ICP to the event. And so naturally, we had loads of conversations. It then dips off over Christmas for obvious reasons. And then in January, it heats back up. Now, because we've got this process down to a T now, it skyrockets in the week of January the 29th, where we have 158 different conversations with our ICP. So what we've now transformed our whole data and LinkedIn strategy, we no longer care about followers. We don't care about engagement. We don't even care about views. All we care about is conversations with our ICP. And that's not driven by the views or anything like that. It's driven by our ability to identify these people that are in our ICP and just outreach to them. So it's completely changed the game. The thing is, you can ask it like very obscure questions, like you can ask it anything. And I'll show you. So I'm going to ask it, show me a bar chart using data all the way back to August 2023, which shows days of the week which we receive the most amount of replies. Like a stupid stat, but just to show you the versatility of this. And what I think the point I'm trying to make with this is to do this in Excel or any other method would take you weeks if you even got there. So I was meant to actually put a bar chart, but you guys get the point. But I want to just circle back to the number of conversations graph here. This is my favorite bit. So here, there's a button which says save to my reports. What this then does is it takes my question, saves it, and whenever I have more connections or more messages in my account, it automatically updates the graph. So on an ongoing basis now, that is what I can track for. And I'll circle back to actually show you my dashboard, and the things that I'm using to track is calls booked over time, but in weekly increments. I can track the percentage of my ICP connections. So of my total connections that I receive on a weekly basis, how many of those were actually my ICP. I can test how many messages that I'm actually sending out. And as we just saw, the weekly amount of ICP connections and conversations. So
I want to pause you for just 1 second to, again, just summarize some of the key points that I see that are, again, absolutely brilliant. The trick, if you want, we said the science of sales is maximizing your efforts into the people that are most likely to buy from you, right? That's the whole point of a funnel and so on, is to, I don't want to talk to anybody who may be thinking of, I want to talk to the people who want to buy, that I can really solve the problem, that has the needs, that are in the role to make decisions, like all these decision points in who is the right person I want to talk to. And what you're showing us is a way to automate that almost every step of it, meaning very little manual work. Now, the other thing that you're showing that, again, is nothing short of magic, is going in 1 quarter. So from 0 conversations with the relevant target audience, your ICP, in October to 100 and something in January. And the trend is very clear. Those of you not seeing the graph, like it's going to be probably 250 in February or 400 in February, because once you figure out how to fine tune this machine, you can scale it as much as you want. And I'll give you an example, and Bjion, maybe you an idea that maybe you did or did not think about it. There's other people other than you that are posting content like you on similar topics. You control their content, right? Because you can say, okay, anybody who content on these posts, I want to put them into this machine. And if it doesn't even have to be your content. So like you said, the content production builds your credentials, right? They build your credibility. Like people will want to do business with you if they go and check you out. But you don't even need to have to do that. Like people say, you post 7 times a week and you've been doing this for so long and you have 17,000 followers. I cannot do that. The reality is you control somebody in your industry that posts content and start this process with 0 followers on LinkedIn and still get to pretty good results pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So
this is
and I just wanted to finish off saying this, as in we on a lot of our calls, we get a lot of pushback from the head of sales saying, yeah, this content stuff, but like, how do you actually measure the success of it? Here's point blank, very measurable. These are conversations which we're having with these individuals, and it's now incredibly easy to track or attribute where if this person came from the content or not. Just like you saw when I asked the AI, what was the first conversation with Ricky Solanke? So let's say you now sign a client, all you'd have to do is just sign into this, ask the chatbot, is there a conversation history with Ricky Solanke? And then you would know whether they came from a conversation or a message, or whether they'd interacted with your content at some particular point. Then you can double down on whatever that is to reinforce it and keep it happening again and again. And then you're off to the races.
Awesome. Bjion, this was nothing short of incredible. Like, again, I do this every single week. I've never seen anything this impactful, this well thought after, detailed, and you are really good at explaining this. If people want to follow you, connect with you, work with you, hire you, learn from you, what are the best ways to do that?
Yeah. So it's navrio.ai. So NAVREO.ai. That's our website. Or follow me on LinkedIn. My first name is less easy to spell. So it's BJION Henry. If you just search on LinkedIn, you'll find me.
Awesome. Bjion, can't thank you enough. This was fantastic. And I really appreciate you sharing the time with us. And I really appreciate everybody who joined on the Zoom and that are listening to us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your day. And I will see you next week on the next live.